All right, let's talk about a scenario that is probably way too familiar for anyone who's ever been a worship leader or a music director at a church. You know the one. You've spent hours planning, arranging, practicing. The whole team is dialed in. Every transition is perfect. And then, literally minutes before you go up, your pastor walks over and says,
Or, hey, maybe it's this classic variation on the theme.
and you hear those words and your stomach just hits the floor, right? In that one single moment, all that careful, meticulous preparation you did, it just feels like it's vanishing into thin air. That perfect, prayerfully crafted worship flow you designed all week, gone, just shattered. And that is exactly what it feels like, isn't it? A full-on system crash. Your brain just fills up with error messages. Wait, what was all that work for? Does anyone even respect what we do back here? It's this flash of pure frustration that, if we're not careful, can really curdle into something way worse, like resentment. So look, if we're going to fix this recurring system crash, we can't just keep hitting the reboot button and hoping for the best. We've actually got to run a diagnostic. We need to figure out what's really going on under the hood when that frustration hits, because it's almost always deeper than just a simple change of plans. And this is where it gets super interesting. A lot of the time, this isn't about someone being right and someone being wrong. It's actually a fundamental clash of operating systems. Think about it. Music directors were often wired for structure, for plans, for detailed arrangements. Pastors, on the other hand, are often operating in a much more spontaneous, spirit-led kind of flow. Neither one is wrong, but man, that difference in style is a classic recipe for friction. And let's just get this out of the way. Those feelings are totally valid. You're not making this up. You're dealing with real things here. The artistic frustration of seeing your work changed. That sting you feel when it seems like your team's effort isn't valued. And yeah, that core personality clash we just talked about. But, and this is a big but, beyond all those practical frustrations, there is a much, much deeper layer to this. These moments, as tough as they feel, are actually profound spiritual tests. You know? They test our flexibility. Can we really flow with our leader? They test our submission. Can we adapt without that big, heavy sigh? And they really test our loyalty. Can we keep our joy when the pressure is on and things don't go our way? So the real question isn't about what happens, it's about how we choose to respond. And this is where we need a complete shift in our thinking. It's like we need to install a brand new operating system for how we process these moments. It's time to reboot our hearts and our minds with a much, much higher perspective. Okay, so the first core file for this new OS comes from Colossians. And honestly, this is a total game changer. It reminds us that our ultimate audience, the one we're really playing for, isn't the pastor and it isn't the congregation. It's the Lord. And when you get that, really get that, everything changes. It means all your prep, every single rehearsal, all that work, it was an offering to God. And that offering is always seen and accepted by Him, no matter what happens to the final set list. And here's the second core principle, and this one is so key. The problem isn't actually the change of plans. Nope. The real problem is the state of our own hearts when those plans get changed. And this verse from Philippians just gets straight to the point, doesn't it? I love this definition. Murmuring isn't just, harmless venting. The source material calls it one of the early weapons of disloyalty. Think about that. It's this subtle but incredibly powerful poison that can seep in and infect an entire team culture. So what does this actually look like? Well, it's that loud, heavy sigh for everyone to hear when a change is announced. It's when the green room or the rehearsal space becomes the place where you vent about leadership. And it's that really dangerous place where you're doing what you're told on the outside, but on the inside, you're rolling your eyes, you're mocking, you're resisting. That is the slow burn that turns a music department into a hub of rebellion. Okay, so we've diagnosed the issue, we've installed our new perspective, now for the practical part, the user guide. How do we actually turn this into action? Well, here are 4 steps that can take us from that grudging, sighing compliance to a place of real, joyful obedience. And these are so practical. Number 1, just be honest. Take your real frustrations straight to God. Number 2, have a conversation, a calm, non-defensive one with your leader. 3, start building flexibility right into your process. And 4, and this is huge, actively guard your team's culture from becoming negative. Now about that second step, having the conversation. I know that can feel really intimidating, but this right here is a fantastic template for how to start. When you approach it like this, you're showing submission, you're showing a desire to be excellent, and you're showing you want to collaborate. It just opens a door for real understanding instead of building a wall of conflict.
And you know what? The things you can find out from a conversation like that can be absolutely mind-blowing. You might discover he's making changes because he feels a prompting from the spirit late in the week. Or maybe, from his perspective, the music plans feel a little too rigid, not leaving room for God to move. Or honestly, it's totally possible he just has no idea how disruptive and stressful those changes feel to you and the team.
Now, step 3 is all about getting ahead of the game. Instead of just fighting against the reality of last-minute changes, start preparing for them. This means building set lists that have alternate options baked right in. It means training your team on purpose to be adaptable. You can even practice a couple extra songs each week just so you have them in your back pocket. You're literally building resilience right into your system. And finally, as the leader, you set the tone. You set the culture. You have to be the one who refuses to let rehearsals become gripe sessions. Instead, you can actually frame flexibility as an act of worship itself. When you teach your team that adapting with a joyful heart is part of your offering to God, you completely change the game. It stops being a frustration and starts being an act of service. So when you put all of this together, the principles, the practices, something really amazing starts to happen. It creates a brand new default state for you and your whole team, a totally new inner posture. And your internal operating system, it just doesn't crash anymore. Your new default thought starts to sound like this. My preparation was never wasted. Why? Because it was an offering to God, and He saw every single second of it. That one truth just takes all the sting out of a changed plan. And the second thought that starts to take root is this one. The very act of being flexible, of joyfully flowing with that last-minute change, that, in and of itself, is an act of worship. Your flexibility becomes a beautiful piece of your offering. And finally, you start to fully own your role as the guardian of your team's spiritual health. You take responsibility for the culture. You make a decision that you will not let frustration take root and turn your department into a source of division in the church. So let's just end on this one question for all of us to think about. This is so much bigger than just surviving a change to the set list. It's about transforming that moment of potential frustration into a genuine act of worship. So, is your flexibility part of your worship? Or is it still just a source of frustration? Because the answer to that question, well, it could change everything. Thank you for joining us on The Explainer.